Hello, everybody. Welcome to the magic and miracles of healing. You guys have been a part of such a beautiful series. It's been so much fun talking about this really powerful topic of how we are working through and understanding and breaking down repeating patterns and how they serve us or don't serve us in our daily lives, and allowing us to break through those things and really reach where we want to be in our lives, our dreams, our powers, whatever it is that we're trying to tap into. You guys have been in here for this beautiful ride, and we have another really beautiful topic and speaker today here with us, Jonita D'souza. Welcome so much. Welcome to the show, and we thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you, Stephanie, for creating this space so that we can talk more and more about magic and miracles and make it a normal thing in our lives, because it's normal.
Yes, and we're so happy to have you because as we were talking before, I'm kind of reading off your very beautiful things that you facilitate for other people, and titles are a funny word, but you're a feminine lifestylist and self-leadership mentor for women. I love how you made this beautiful symphony of words for what you do. Tell us a little bit about it, about what you do, but maybe first give us a little bit of history on how you got to doing what you're doing and maybe your experience around it.
Yes. So I was born in India, and I grew up in India in a very privileged family, I should say. I was a teenager, and I was really blessed to be in a family where they always encouraged me to become an independent woman. And this was something, we're talking 1980s and 1990s, and India was at that time particularly a very narrow-minded and very masculine dominated society. So my father always instilled this idea in my head that, hey, in order for you to be an independent and strong woman, you have to be financially independent. And that's the way I can be stronger than men. And that's what I thought. And that's what I pursued in the beginning of my life. And just like many other Indians, you either become an IT engineer or a doctor. So I too, as they say, became an IT engineer. And then at a very young age, I was in a very good position in a corporate firm, being in boardrooms with other men, and I was earning good money. I was only 21, and I had the financial freedom. I had good job, and I did not feel independent. That feeling that I thought that I will have once I achieved this success did not come true for me. And although, yes, I had all the provisions and luxury and independence to do what I want, but there was not much of independence to really express the way that I was wanting to be. And, I'm an introvert, and to express myself, like, wearing, colorful clothes and like just walking in the street, just enjoying myself and feeling free was not a possibility for me in that city, in that culture. It wasn't safe. So I kind of was very disappointed because I was chasing, for many years to be this way. And then in the back of my head, I was always also inspired by Western women, watching all those Hollywood movies. And I was thinking like, wow, they have the independence to express themselves. Western women are free. I must go there. And then I will be independent and free. And funny enough, I got an opportunity to go to London and pursue my career. So I shifted to London. I was 23. I was really excited. I thought this is it. Now I am free. Now I'm independent. I got it. And I really enjoyed my first couple of years there, living there. And soon I realized, I caught myself in the company of women, and it was all fine. But then underlying emotions began to, come into my reality, that yes, women are more free here in the West as compared to the East, However, there is always an emptiness. There's always a chase to look good, to be good, to look beautiful, to be successful, to be wanted, to be heard, to be seen. And this was very tiring for me. And I did that too. And I became so tired. It didn't make sense. And during that time of confusion in my life, my father passed away in India.
Right.
And I was I was beginning to suffer from a very chronic skin disease, psoriasis, which was just spreading all over my body, and I had no control. Steroids were not working. Nothing was happening in my life. And I found myself in a stage of very deep depression, not understanding what I'm chasing as a woman. And now that I don't even feel beautiful because my skin looks horrible and there is no cure. And so I was grieving my father's death, and I was cursing and angry at God. And this was the time, this was a turning point in my life where through the dark nights of the soul, I came across some help, some support, some teachers were sent my way, where I took a risk. I decided to take a risk because I didn't want to go back to India. I didn't want to stay in London. And I was confused as hell where to go. What should I do to be a woman in this modern day lifestyle? And funny enough, the path always opens somehow, knowingly, unknowingly. And this is, again, part of the magic and miracle, that is existing in our lifetimes. When you really want it, you've got to have your eyes and ears open to what is around you. So that was the moment where I came across a Facebook ad, which said something about essence workshop. And this was for women to discover their essence. And I was like, okay, 10 pounds, I'm sitting by the door. I'm going to go and see if this woo-woo thing is for me or not, because I was such a corporate-minded girl, like not believing on any of the spiritual aspects of the divine feminine. So I went there, I experienced the circle, and I cried for the entire 2 hours. I cried, I sat by the door, but I did not leave. And the women there, they held me. They held me not by saying, it's okay, don't cry, things will be all right. Instead, they said, cry. This is the time, this is for you, this is the space, cry. I want you to cry. And the teacher said something really beautiful. She said something around essence. It is one of the most powerful gifts that you can give to someone, show them their essence. And that became my quest. I wanted to find out my essence. And I then began to, work with this woman, and she took me into a journey of identifying various aspects of the feminine essence that I could not then begin to understand and clarify and perceive life through the lens, which made more sense and much more sense. And it was very interesting because the teachings that she was teaching me, being in the West, were the teachings from my roots, from my ancestral lineage, which I wasn't even bothered about when I was there. So somehow it felt like life coming to a full circle, that I had to be, removed from my roots to understand the power of my roots. I couldn't see it when I was there. And yes, so that became my journey of exploring femininity, and hence my work around helping women started from there. In short, this is the story, I could say.
What a beautiful story. I could sit and listen to this over and over on replay. I had just these beautiful images of your journey, and I'm sure it wasn't beautiful all the time, because that work is really difficult and tough, but it's nice to look at it as beautiful, kind of once we're on that other side, just like you said, removing yourself from your roots. So I want to thank you for sharing that with us, because I really appreciate hearing stories like this, because they're so unique and so authentic, and they're yours. And not only did you create your own story here and allow things to unfold the way they did, but here you are facilitating and walking women to creating their own story in their own unique way, and allowing them to know that they're safe and they're held in a space, that it doesn't matter what's going on, or maybe what their fears are, or how they were born or raised, or, you know, whatever the circumstance is. It's just such a beautiful and comforting feeling to know that there are people like you out there that support us women in this journey of just navigating what, you know, that the culture is changing all the time. You know, society is changing so much, especially recently, and especially around conversations around women. To name one of them, there are a few big things happening in the world right now, but I really appreciate the work that you're doing, because it's really beautiful. I want to ask you, because it's almost a question I think that would come up in other people's minds when we talk about like a feminine lifestylist. That's kind of how you package it up. What does that look like for anyone that is saying, well, what is that? How do I know if that's the right direction for me to go? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's interesting. I coined this phrase for myself because of what my journey got me into. The funny thing is that when I was learning the various aspects of the divine feminine and understanding more of my essence, I was getting a lot of tools, a lot of practices from my teacher. You know, she used to live in Glastonbury. If you've heard of Glastonbury in the UK. She used to live in Glastonbury and I used to live in London. So I would go to her on weekends and I would learn from her and come back to my normal life. You know, but I was given tools to practice and I was practicing them and my life was changing. And what I noticed is that I wanted to talk about it. Yes, I wanted to women to know, like, hey, you know, do you know that you can actually hold your body and say some nice things and you know, feel safe and do certain meditations, certain ways where you can feel totally good about yourself and all of that. So I was having these conversations with my friends and they were like, what's wrong with her? What is she talking about, right? So my teacher at the time, she said to me that, hey, why don't you make up a meetup group and call in other women who are in situations like you, who would like to practice certain things. And the practice mostly involved, like, you know, giving time to our emotions, to our bodies, to our feelings, to our energy, and like really sensing the Shakti. You know, the sensing of the Shakti was the most important practice. And so she asked me to create a practice group, you know, and put up a meetup. So I decided to do that. And I thought I'll have a couple of women who are in my situation. We can come together, we can discuss, and we can practice together. And when I put up this meetup, I had over 480 women join the meetup event. And And again, this is part of the magical unfolding that happened in my life as the feminine lifestylist, because I was not interested in making a business out of it. I wanted to rescue myself. That was what I wanted, right? So I was petrified. I was like, no way, what am I supposed to do with so many women? And they're writing to me, yes, I want to come, I want to come. And it was my living room that could hold only 4 more women, right? So anyway, so I decided to make a list of all those practices, and I was thinking like, hey, these are the feminine practices that we women got to or could include in our busy lifestyles so that we can really feel safe in our bodies and also start to honor the intuition that is within us, listen to them, and also respond to them with safety, right? Feeling safe in our own wisdom. So that's how what happened later is that my teacher then told me, like, looks like this is a sign from the universe. Maybe you have to now hone into some facilitation skills. And that's how this whole concept of, feminine lifestylist was born for me. Like, hey, I'm going to create practices to help women to embody their feminine. I'm going to make my own paradigm around it, and I'm going to share. And if someone likes it and feels good about it, then let's see what we can do with it. And that's exactly how I actually started my business, because I had no idea or desire for it to begin with.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I have to know, where did you end up fitting everybody? Where did you?
I was apologizing to everyone. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, but I will create a plan for what to do next. So I started seeking help from my teacher on how to expand this, or how to even work with such numbers. I did not. I actually conned out. I had no, to be really honest, I did not have the confidence, because I was still, as I said, rescuing myself. But I started conducting small groups, and the intention of meeting in the small groups was just to express. There was no facilitation happening. There was just sharing of ideas and opinions, and just, women coming together and sharing their stories. That was so healing, because at the face of it, everyone looks good and goes to work and does all the chores, plays all different roles. But when you meet in circles and take out that mask, we are almost the same.
Mm-hmm. And we just want to be heard.
Yes. And we understood each other. Like, every time a woman shared, we all would shake and nod our heads. Yeah.
It's very true. It's interesting because I think I can't speak for men, because obviously I am not a man and I have not walked in a man's shoes in this lifetime. But as women, because we're so good at multitasking, and I think that comes just because we birth children and it's just very natural. It's just natural for us to be able to multitask. We also have mastered the ability, and this is in my opinion, mastered the ability to put that face on and say everything is fine and this is how it's going to be, and take things at face value, because we're just so busy moving on to the next thing or taking care of somebody else that we've become very good at just turning things on and off, or letting things go. And then the minute we get exposure to a space like this, our body is like, thank you. Yes, I want to be heard. Can I tell my story? But we don't realize it until we're actually in that space. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And oftentimes we are very resistant to even commit to that space. And there is a very famous saying in the tantric lineage, which is that a man is nourished by the women in his life, which could be the wife, the mother, the grandmother, the daughter. This is the nourishing element for a man. And women are nourished by other women. And this is the reason, since centuries, women go to other women in circles and share. What mistake we do these days is that we expect our men to nourish us like how we nourish them. So this is not a reciprocal quality that we can actually hone on to on a deeper level. Women are wired to nourish and be more emotional sensitive to each other.
Thank you so much for reminding us of that, because what you said is so true. And it is so nourishing just to hear you say those words, because I reel back in, relationships where, that I see in my family, not necessarily my own. I'm the only one I'm in this with myself, but the relationships in my family where the women are, have a higher masculine tendency, and there's a long line of them, especially on my mother's side. And it's really interesting because my mom and my grandmother and her mother, and even some of the aunts in the family, they don't have women friends. They don't really like women. They don't really trust them. And there's that missing quality. And it's really interesting as you say that, I connected those dots, because I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Why they've been able to, they hold such high masculine energy. They also have a very beautiful feminine, but they're trying to hold it all. They're trying to contain it all and create it all and nurture it all and nourish it all. When that other, there's a missing element there that really drives and honors that very beautiful feminine energy that's there. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's a really powerful awareness.
Yeah. And, this is what the work we are doing as you and me and so many other women watching, listening, we are recreating our lineage. We are standing at the forefront. And as you were talking earlier about the repetitive patterns, there are so many repetitive patterns from our lineage, which we are standing up to. Now we are facing them, and we are recreating to what feels home, what feels truth, and what feels in integrity even, right?
Yes. And as you I almost completely got off topic about our whole purpose of this summit of repeating patterns. Let's dive into that a little bit. And I want to hear from you. What does repeating patterns mean? And what does that look like to you in the work that you do?
Repeating patterns, I think they are one of the most depressing things, to be really honest, to experience. And I want to say this out loud, because this is so true. Oftentimes you think that you have worked so much on yourself and you've figured it out, you have healed an aspect, and then 2 months later something very similar happens, and then you start beating yourself down that, hey, but I thought the work was done. I thought I did it, and like, why now, and why me, and why again, and all of that. So repeating patterns are really challenging, and I believe, according to me, it is more related to our karmic cycle. This is one of the reasons we are here, and as part of our soul contract to experience until we have learned a lesson out of it, and we take a forward step in the direction of that lesson. So I believe that repeating patterns are just reminders that, hey, some work has not yet been complete. And I also believe that right now, the times that we are living in, the Aquarian age, we have the capacity as a human being in this human consciousness to step out of our karmic cycle. This Aquarian age is no longer about going in the loop and loop and loop, but actually deciding that, hey, I've done the work, I'm out of it this now, and I'm going to create something new. So, and again, once again, for me, like, this is magic, and this is the magical power that we have, because by definition, magic is the attempt to use any kind of powers to influence a desired outcome. If you actually think, you use some powers, and we have those powers. What we have understood is that those repetitive patterns come back to us, and they are painful, they are hurtful, and we perceive them from this human physical level, that, yeah, it hurts, it's painful, and I feel like shutting down and all of that. Yes, that is the truth, but the other reality is also available, which we are not choosing or holding. The reality that there is something bigger than what we think about ourselves. There's a grander version of ourselves that is always available. And for me, we women have so much capacity to hold pain. And we women have so much capacity to love. And we women have so much capacity to hold both together. Or we just hold on to one thing. So again, this is for our opportunity to use our magical powers to hold duality. We are not refusing that the pain doesn't exist, but what we are also utilizing is that the desire of an outcome also exists, and they can coexist. We can take these two together and move forward.
Yes. I love how you're explaining that. And, it kind of reminds me, as we've talked about repeating patterns a lot in this series, it reminds me a lot of what's coming to me right now is Alice in Wonderland. You know, when she falls down the rabbit hole and she gets that key and to go into the door, it's almost as if these repeating patterns are a key, even though they show up and they're really frustrating and they're really like, you can get sad, you can get depressed, you can get mad, you can get angry, or you could do what I always did, which was, oh, I'm going to get stronger. Now I'm going to go at this head on, right? Instead of like, that's actually not what they're trying to do. They're trying to, it's like this magical key, this pattern that's showing up as a key that is going to allow you to go through the door that you've always wanted. But this key is not beautiful and shiny. This key is going to be a lot of work to get into that door and open it. But it's just a matter of maybe switching our mindset and allowing us to hold and appreciate and love and honor these patterns that are coming up and nurture them, especially, and say, you know what, this is where the work is. This is going to be a dark place, but there is going to, it's just right on the other side of that door. It's right on the other side. And instead of fighting them or resisting them or running away from them, really just holding that key and knowing that there's some work to do to get that door open, but that's exactly what's going to unlock it. And I love how that's kind of what I took away from what you were saying. And it's patterns they're a funny thing. I say that now because in my whole life, I was constantly having them show up. And especially in the last 21 years for me, it was like over and over every single year. And I always took them, Jonita, I always took them as like, people would say, oh, Stephanie, you're so strong. That only happens to you for some reason. Like you're always dealt this really hard hand. And I took it as a badge of honor. And I took it and walked away like, oh, I did it. I conquered another one. And then it came up again. And as we sit here in this series and peel back the layers of what these can look like for people, it's so interesting because I think by you explaining it the way you were explaining it, and when you said, you know, patterns are depressing or can be depressing, right? I never really thought about them that way, but that's the first thing that you feel when they come back up, especially the people that are a little more aware and conscious of where they are maybe in a spiritual journey or, you know, whatever work they're doing, they see it again and you're just, it becomes this feeling of like, man, I didn't get it right. You know, like that internal dialogue. So I really appreciate you packaging it up that way, because that does happen for sure. It could feel defeating for a moment.
Yes. And, you know, one thing that has really helped me, I spent the last 3 years in India studying with some of the mystics there, some people who you cannot find online. And when you go and work with such kind of people, they don't give you certain set of things or set of ideas to follow. It's like they always speak in parables or some stories. And I just was frustrated because tell me what to do, right? And so one of the things that I was able to take away is that, as I mentioned earlier, with this Aquarian age that we have stepped into, and we right now are working with such higher levels of consciousness around us that we have a choice right now to activate use our magical powers to activate our DNA and step out of our karmic cycle. So, and that can be done very easily, firstly, by using your sound, your voice. And for me, it's helped greatly when I started, you know, seeing patterns coming back in my life and started saying them out loud to myself, that I disconnect from any sufferings of my karmic cycle. I just disconnect. I choose to disconnect. I disconnect. I'm disconnecting. I am disconnecting. I am done, because the thing is that we feel that healing is start and end process, which is not. Healing doesn't end ever. And so it might feel like an illusion that we are chasing to complete, to finish, because the the real reason for healing is to open our hearts to the higher heart consciousness. And healing happens when, you see your daughter smiling to you genuinely. That's the moment of healing. Healing happens every day in every little thing, and we don't have to work for it. We don't have to work through it. We have to start commanding, choosing, using our voice, and become really present with our powers that already exist within ourselves.
Yes, what a gift. That I feel like that should be one of your free gifts, is that piece of information, because I think that's a really good reminder. I actually just started working with a new woman in my life, and a very feminine woman, which is very different for me, very, very different. For anyone that knows me, they would be like, what, Stephanie? And I've been learning that practice of like, no, you're choosing to get rid of the family karma. Like, we're not going to sit and go through all of these, like almost repeat your pattern of reeling in these cycles of trying to heal it. You've done that work. You've identified it. You are continuing to do it every day, but you need to choose, and you need to sit there and say, I no longer am going to sit in my family karmas, or I'm no longer going, whatever that statement is. And I think that the beautiful takeaway that I'm going to be taking away from this conversation is really allowing myself more energy and love and support to do that, and to use those words and to command those things for my life. And because it's almost moving out of a victim mentality. And even though some of us may not want to admit it, it exists. Our victim mentality exists, I think, in every one of us, because somehow we feel victimized, but we're not going to say it. Some of us use it out loud a little easier than others, but yeah, that's so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And before we wrap up today, I wanted to, if you could share a little bit more about your free gift, as we're talking about this, about your free gift and how anyone can reach you. And if you had any last thoughts or words that you wanted to share about repeating patterns.
Yeah, the free gift I want to share is called Sensualize Your Womb. And that is a 7 days free series for women to connect with their womb space. So I have designed 7 different practices, rituals, sensual rituals, particularly to connect with the womb space. And why I find it important is because we women have to first begin to feel safe in our bodies. And it begins from the womb. And in the free series has a variety of practices, so we can pick and choose on which days, because we like variety. The feminine likes variety, right? So that's available, and that's the beginning journey for most of us women, to begin with the womb, to hone that safety, so that we can then use our voice.
That's amazing. And how can anyone reach you if they're interested in just asking some questions or learning more about you, or even starting to work with you, if a lot of this resonated with them?
Yeah, so my website is jonitadisouza.com, and I am also available under the same name, under my name on Facebook. I think I'm the most active there, still figuring out Instagram. So yeah, I'm available for any conversations, questions, or there are plenty of free gifts available on my Facebook page as well. If anyone wants to learn more or get in touch, ask questions, that's the best way.
You've got some really good conversations recorded on there as well, some good videos with other people, and just like this one, where we can kind of get to know Jonita a little bit better. So I encourage anyone that is stepping back and kind of questioning some things internally today, go and have fun on her page and get to know her a little bit more, because it's very insightful and very nourishing information there. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Stephanie, just openly talking about some really vulnerable things of our lives. We women don't have much space for that. So thank you for creating and holding that space.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And I look forward in the future to either working with you in some capacity or seeing you again. And now for sure, next year, seeing you in India. And I really am grateful for everything that you're doing and really stepping out of your root system. That's one of the biggest things that I've learned recently through my journey. And I wasn't anticipating on sharing it, but I feel a little called to when you were talking about stepping outside of your root system, and then it allowed you to honor and understand it more once you've kind of gotten out of it. I recently have done the same thing where when I stepped out of it, it was this like, oh my gosh, how did I function in this family? No wonder why I was so different, right? Like there was just this big opposing position that I was in. And it was a very beautiful flow because once I had kind of worked through what I am called to do and meant to do, and the work, and where my powers are and where my weaknesses are and my strengths are, I stepped back into the family and I was like, oh my gosh, like they are my strength. Like this is, and it's a really interesting full circle when you come back into that space. So I don't know why I was called to share, but for anyone that is curious about that, reach out. And you, Jonita, could have a really amazing insight to how that works, because it's really cool stuff.
Yeah, amazing work.
Yes. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to anyone connecting here. And thank you, everybody, for being a part of Magic and Miracles of Healing, working through repeating patterns and what they look like in your life. And we're sending you so much love and support, because just listening to this is healing. It is going to move mountains for you. Just making different decisions after conversations like this, and listening and opening up your heart and your mind and your spirit. Things will change. And whether it's one interaction, whether you're just listening to one interview, or whether you're listening to all of them, this is so impactful on so many ways for you and your family and your lifestyle and your choices, that I'm really happy for you. I'm really excited for you. So is Jonita. We're super supportive, and we're really grateful for you showing up here with us as well. So everybody have a good rest of the day, morning, evening, night, wherever you are. We appreciate you, and we're sending you so much love and support.
Thank you so much.